Welcome to Nerdy Psychology, where your mind's not as messy as it seems. We break it down with a little curiosity and make sense of your thoughts and your themes. So be curious, stay kind, keep your mind nerdy.
It was a Tuesday, a perfectly normal Tuesday. I had already answered 17 emails by 9 a.m. I made 3 clinical decisions by noon. I had to choose between 2 insurance policies. I had to respond to scheduling conflicts. And then when I got home, I had to decide what we were eating for dinner for the 3rd night in a row, because apparently that job fell on my lap. And then when my partner looked at me at 6:30 and said, "Hey, what do you want to watch tonight?" Just stood there. Staring blank, like this loaded screen that was never finishing. I didn't care about the show. I couldn't pick. I couldn't think. I would have watched paint dry if someone just pointed me to the right wall. So I said, I don't care. You pick. And this is the really fun part. When they pick something, I immediately felt this tiny wave of irritation, like, that's not right either. Sound familiar? That, my friends, is decision fatigue. And today we're going to talk about why high achieving people get hit the hardest, what's happening in your brain, and most importantly, some science-backed tools to actually do something about it. Let's go. Hey, welcome back to Nerdy Psychology, the place where we learn how human behavior works in a sciencey, nerdy vibe. I'm Dr. Angel, a licensed mental health practitioner, and this channel exists for one reason, because understanding your own brain is one of the most powerful things you can do for your life. If you're new here, welcome. You're going to want to stick around because we don't do surface level here. We go deep. We make it make sense, and we make it come out with something that you can actually use. And if you've been here before, well, you already know what's up. You're my people. Before we dive in, if this kind of content speaks to you, please hit that like and subscribe button so that you do not miss another episode. Okay, let's talk about why your brain sometimes taps out. Here's the thing. Most of us were never taught that making decisions costs us something. We think of decisions as like this neutral activity, like you just pick. How hard can it be? But here's the truth, that psychology and neuroscience has been trying to tell us for decades. Every single decision you make draws from a finite mental resource. And when that resource gets depleted, you don't just slow down. You get impulsive. You get avoidant. You get irritable, and you stop caring about things that actually matter to you. And if you're someone who's carrying a lot, a big job, a household, caregiving responsibilities, a business, you are burning through that resource faster than most people. This episode is for high achievers, the caretakers, the entrepreneurs, the overcommitted, the I'll just handle it people. This one is for you. Let's dive in. So what exactly is decision fatigue? Decision fatigue is the deteriorating quality of decisions made after long sessions of decision making. It's not laziness. It's not weakness. It's documented, measurable psychological and neurological phenomenon. This term was made popular by the social psychologist Roy Baumeister, who built his early research about something called ego depletion. And that's the idea that self-control and decision-making draw from the same limited mental energy store, like a battery. And the more you use it, the lower it gets. So here's what decision fatigue can look like in real life, because it doesn't always look like what you would expect it to look like. It can look like choice avoidance. You just don't decide. You just put it off. You say, I'll figure it out later, but later never comes. And also, you're exhausted later on. It can look like impulsivity. You just stop carefully weighing options and just grab the first thing. You put it in your cart and you just buy it, and you say yes when you should say no, when you say no when you should say yes. It can look like decision defaulting. You go with whatever's the easiest, whatever's the most familiar, whatever requires the least cognitive effort, even when it's what's not best for you. It can look like emotional dysregulation, like you're snapping at people, you're irritable, you're crying over something. Well, that's not really that deep, but your brain is just done, and the buffer between stimulus and response has just gone offline. It can look like total shutdown. You stare at the menu for like 10 minutes and then you just order what you always order. Your partner asks you what you want for dinner, and you don't have an answer. You have zero answer to say. You're cognitively checked out. Does any of that land? Well, now let's talk about why it happens. Okay, here's where we get, nerdy. This is my favorite part. When you make a decision, any decision, your prefrontal cortex is doing, the heavy lifting. And this is the part of your brain right behind your forehead, and it's responsible for planning and reasoning and impulse control and weighing consequences and executive function. It's basically the CEO of your brain. And the prefrontal cortex, it runs on glucose and sustained attention. It is metabolically expensive. Every decision, every act of self-regulation, every time you override an impulse or resist a default, it costs fuel. Research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, and yes, we're citing real studies here because that's how we do it, showed that judges were more likely to grant parole at the beginning of a day or right after a break, and significantly less likely to grant parole as the session went on. And not because they were bad judges, because their decision-making capacity just started getting depleted. And that's wild and sobering. So what else is also happening? The amygdala, it gets louder. And the amygdala is your brain's threat detection and emotional processing center. And normally your prefrontal cortex kind of supervises the amygdala. It helps you regulate emotional reactions. But when the prefrontal cortex is fatigued, that supervision weakens, the amygdala starts running the show. And this is why decision fatigue makes you feel emotionally reactive, irritable, sometimes impulsive in ways you later regret. Dopamine dysregulation. Decision-making is also linked to the brain's dopamine system, and that's that reward motivation pathway. When this system gets taxed, your motivation to engage in careful, deliberate thinking, it drops. And your brain starts looking for the path of least resistance. And that's not a character flaw. That's your brain trying to conserve its resources. Working memory gets squeezed. Every open decision, everything you haven't resolved yet, takes up space in working memory. Researchers sometimes call these open loops. You have 20 of them running in the background at all times. That cognitive load taxes the system even when you're not actively deciding anything. So here's a picture. Your prefrontal cortex is depleted. Your amygdala is amplified and your dopamine system is tanking. And your working memory, that's maxed out. That is not a bad day. That is decision fatigue. Okay, so now let's talk about, why high-achieving individuals are particularly susceptible to decision fatigue. Because this is important and it doesn't get talked about enough. High achievers tend to carry what I call decision-dense lifestyle. Think about it. You're running a business. You're making dozens, sometimes hundreds of micro and macro decisions. every single day. Hiring decisions, budget decisions, strategic pivots, client communications, team dynamics. If you're in a leadership role, you're the person people bring their problems to. Every question that lands on your desk is a decision you're expected to make. And if you're a parent and a professional, and especially if you're doing both at high levels, you're not just making your own decisions, you're making decisions on behalf of other people constantly. If you're a caregiver, if you're a therapist, a teacher, a doctor, a first responder, your work literally requires that you make consequential decisions all day long. Decisions that matter, decisions that have real stakes. And here's the part that's almost unfair. High achievers are also more likely to hold themselves to high standards of decision making. They're not just deciding more, they're deciding harder, more with scrutiny, more with second guessing, more with awareness of consequences. There's also the mental load factor, and mental load is all the invisible cognitive labor of managing a life, keeping track of appointments and anticipating needs and maintaining systems and planning ahead. And research consistently shows this falls disproportionately on women, on primary caregivers, and on people in high responsible roles. And mental load is essentially a constant, slow drain on your decision-making battery. The cruel irony, the more capable and responsible you are, the more people trust you with decisions. And the more decisions you make, the more depleted you become. And you're not struggling because you're weak. You're struggling because you're carrying a lot. And guess what? Your brain is human. This is where we're about to do something about it. So here are some science-backed, practically tested tools for reducing decision fatigue. And just like always, we're going with 3 because, well, 3 is doable. 3 you could actually remember and use. Tool 1, decision batching and protected time ordering. Here's the core principle. Do your most important decisions first and group similar decisions together. Your decision-making capacity is highest at the beginning of your cognitive day before you burn through some of those resources on emails or minor tasks or reactive responses to other people's needs. So the first tool is about when and how you organize decisions. So what does this look like in practice? Well, block the first 60 to 90 minutes of your day for your highest stakes decisions or cognitive work. Before you open that email, before you check social media, before you start responding to other people, protect that window and then batch smaller decisions. So instead of making micro decisions randomly throughout the day, what to have for lunch, what to wear, what errand to run first, cluster them together. Spend 10 minutes on a Sunday deciding meals for the week or laying out outfits Sunday night. Pre-decide routine things so they're not drawing from your daily budget. Barack Obama famously wore only gray and blue suits while in office, and he said that he had too many other decisions to make to spend mental energy on what to wear. Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, same principle. Now, I'm not saying you have to wear the same thing every day, but notice the intention behind that. Reduce the number of trivial decisions so you have more capacity for the meaningful ones. Decision batching is essentially pre-spending your cognitive energy wisely so you don't run out when it counts. Tool 2, the good enough rule. Insatisficing. This one is going to feel, well, let's just be honest, uncomfortable for high achievers. And that's exactly why you need it. Psychologist Barry Schwartz wrote a book called The Paradox of Choice, where he identified 2 decision-making styles, maximizers and satisficers. Maximizers try to make the best possible decision. They research everything. They compare every option. They second guess themselves and often end up more exhausted and less satisfied even when they technically won. Satisficers get a threshold for good enough. They find an option that meets their criteria and then they stop. They don't keep looking for something better, and research shows they tend to be happier with their decisions and experience less decision fatigue. High achievers are almost always maximizers by default, which means they're spending enormous energy on decisions that do not warrant it. The tool create a good enough threshold for low to medium stakes decisions. Ask yourself, what would good enough look like? Not perfect, not optimal, just meets the necessary criteria, and then commit. Save your maximizing energy for decisions that actually matter, the ones where the stakes are high and the outcomes genuinely make significant differences in your life or your work. For everything else, good enough is not settling. Good enough is wisdom. Tool 3, closing open loops, the daily decision capture. Remember, we talked about those open loops, all those unresolved decisions running in the background, eating up your working memory, your cognitive resources. This tool is about closing them intentionally. And here's how it works. At the end of each day or first thing in the morning, spend 5 to 10 minutes just doing what I call a decision capture. Get out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and write down every decision that's sitting unresolved in your head in that moment. Big, small, trivial, important. Just get them out. And then for each one, do one of 3 things. Decide right now if it's small and you have enough information. Just make a decision. Done. Check those off the list. Schedule a decision time. If it's bigger, assign a specific slot in your calendar. So I'll figure out vacation dates on Friday at noon. Now your brain can let go of holding it because it has a space. Or you can delegate or defer with intention. So if it doesn't need to be your decision, give it to someone else. If it genuinely can wait, park it. Not avoidance, but intentional postponement. The reason this works is that your brain doesn't know the difference between holding on to something and actively working on it. And open loops create the same cognitive load, whether you're thinking about them or not. And when you externalize them, you get them out of your head and into a system, and you free up working memory and reduce the ambient cognitive drain. And that's why journaling and planning tools and trusted systems help so much, because they're literally offloading cognitive labor from your brain onto paper or onto a screen where it doesn't cost you anything to store. If you do this practice for 5 to 10 minutes every day, in a couple weeks, you're going to feel a difference. So let's bring this home. A client of mine, I'll call her Maya. She came to me overwhelmed. She was a high-performing project manager, a mama too. She was showing up to sessions feeling, irritable, foggy, like she couldn't even trust her own judgment anymore. She thought something was seriously wrong with her. And then we started mapping her day. She was making dozens of decisions before 10 a.m. She ate whatever was the easiest because, she couldn't choose. She put off major career decisions for 6 weeks because every time she sat down to think about it, her brain would just go blank. We started small. She moved her most important decisions to first thing in the morning before anyone else needed anything from her. And then we implemented the weekly batch of household and logistical decisions on Sunday evenings. And she started doing the 5-minute decision capture before bed each night. And within 3 weeks, she said something that stuck with me. She said, "I feel like I got my mind back." She hadn't changed her responsibilities. She hadn't quit anything dramatically. She just started managing her cognitive resources like the finite, precious thing that they are. And that's what this is about. Not doing less, doing what matters better. I want to hear from you. What does decision fatigue look like in your life? Is it the 6 p.m. brain fog, the snapping at people you love, the paralysis in front of the takeout menus, or maybe Which one of these 3 tools are you going to try first? Drop it in the comments. I read them, I respond to them, and honestly, your comments make this channel richer for everyone who finds it. And hey, if today's episode resonated with you and you're someone who's navigating big life transition, feeling stuck, or ready to do some intentional work on where you're headed, I want you to know about my workbook called Your Next Chapter. It's a guided workbook I created to help you get clear on where you are, where you actually want, and what's been getting in the way. It's structured and it's grounded in the same psychology we talk about on this channel. And people tell me it's the thing that finally made thinking about their life feel manageable. I'll put the link in the description below. Check it out if you want. And before you go, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and it means you won't miss an episode. Like this video if it was useful. Share it with someone who needed to hear it. You know who in your life is running on, well, empty. Send it to them. And that's it for today, my friends. And as always, stay curious, be kind, and keep your mind nerdy. That's a wrap. See you next week.
So be curious, stay kind, keep your mind